but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Tuesday night, eagerly anticipated by our regular viewers. It's Liam Kennedy night, where Steve Wraith says absolutely nothing apart from ask Liam questions. And I think that's probably why it's eagerly anticipated. And people don't have to hear me witter on for 90
I'm sure that's not the case, Steve. I'm sure.
Liam, good to see you, mate. And it was good to share a car journey down to a friendly with you as well. So you're back on the road. You're not stuck in an office. So before we get to the viewers' questions, of which there are plenty, let's just ask you what it was like to be back on the road as a roving reporter.
That was really good. It's just good to get your eye back in, get in and amongst it, speak to the manager face to face. I won't be the only one here, but there aren't many people who've really spoken to Steve Bruce outside of the players and his family, etc., in the last 18 months. So it's been really good to sort of get to be able to speak to the man face to face. Seeing Newcastle United live again, it's been a mixed bag, to be brutally honest. We were both here at Burton as well on Friday. I thought they won that game at a Canter, played reasonably well, but then rolled it back 4 days previous to Rotherham, and it was a real struggle. I think we've seen today they played a behind closed doors friendly today against Burnley, and things didn't go particularly well. I think you look at the starting 11 of that game, and you have to say that there is concerns there if that starting 11 starts the Premier League campaign next week. I don't think it will, being honest. I think there will be a certain amount of players back. John Joe Shelvey has half a chance. Callum Wilson, I expect, will probably be back. Alan St-Maximin has half a chance, despite his illness. And that's one thing that have been getting noises of in recent weeks is don't believe that the paranoia that's building around St-Maximin. That I don't think the club particularly are of a mind to sell the player, and he is genuinely ill. It's of course up to him to reveal his own medical status, nobody else, which is why there's been no announcement. But I think most people can join the dots on that one. And I think people are joining the dots and getting to the wrong place. Would Alan St-Maximin leave Newcastle United? As I'm going off on a tangent here, I'll keep walking. Would Alan St-Maximin leave Newcastle United today if an offer came on the table? Absolutely. I'm certain he would. And would I blame him for that? I don't think anybody would. It's a rudderless ship, as we know. There is a lack of ambition. It's an ambition vacuum. And I don't blame any player for thinking twice about not wanting to stay if you've got any ounce of ambition in you. So, look, but the club aren't minded to sell. I think he's probably a 40 or 50 million pound player maybe in the market because of his match winning ability, not because of his consistency or professionalism. More to do with his match winning ability. But will anybody pay that? I think Newcastle want more than that as well. I think they'll want a higher premium, given how crucial he is to this team. So I think we'll probably have him for another season unless there's a mega offer comes down on the table, or we see some kind of Harry Kane sort of stomping of the feet type thing, which he's doing at Tottenham at the moment, which there's been no signs at all of that from Alan St-Maximin this summer, despite the fact his people are maybe stirring things a little bit and possibly wanting to move. And look, that takes one to Joe Willock as well. I'm sure people will ask questions on that tonight. But I don't really... Look, I don't know if certain reports are correct, but if you read a lot of it, if the lad is having sort of second thoughts, as I read today, then it wouldn't surprise us as well. Look, Arsenal's his club. He's been there since a very, very young boy. I think it was about 5 or 6 years old. He was taken on by Arsenal. He's only 21. He's still got a lot of years ahead of him. And he's probably going to be around the fringes again. Is that going to be enough for him? Would one more year spoil his career if he stayed at Arsenal? Probably not. Could he make an impact at Arsenal? I've got doubts whether he's got the consistency to do that. Because even when you look at the 14-game, 8-goal spell at Newcastle United, he was dropped from the team. And I remember having conversations. You could easily roll the clock back and look at it. And there was a lot of people on here, on this show, because I remember taking the questions myself and people saying, I don't rate him, he's not good enough. That was at a point we're at in the season. The team were playing really badly. And I consistently said, just hang with it. He's a young lad and he's playing in a really bad side. And I think he shone through in the end. It's always important not to judge people too quickly, but by the same token, don't judge what he did at the end of the season as the benchmark of what he can achieve. So that's probably why he won't stay at Arsenal, is because they know he was probably massively overachieving in terms of goals tallies at Newcastle United. But his performances were largely patchy. He was excellent and on form towards the end of the season, but before that he was patchy. So I think there is, I can see the point where he might say, do you know what, I don't know if I want to at this point in my career move permanently in Newcastle United. I don't know if a loan's right for me. Should I stick it here? I could see that one rumbling on a little longer. But I spoke to Steve Bruce on Friday, asked him the question, and he spoke at length about transfers. And one particular thing that struck me about the conversation on Friday compared to the Tuesday at Rotherham, which I asked him about transfers again, was that there seemed to be a bit more of a finality about it. There was more talk of second options. There was more talk of moving on from Joe Willock, despite the fact he was absolutely number one target. And that was reiterated by Steve Bruce on Friday, was that he is still the number one target, but it would be stupid to think that we're definitely going to get him, because it's down to, and he did mention both names, Arteta and Willock. The ball is in their court. So where that actually stands, it's hard to know. But I do know Steve Bruce really does want him through the door. And I've always said, we talk a lot about budgets, particularly earlier in the summer. A lot of people saying about Newcastle United, they've got X amount, Y amount, whatever it may be. And it's always been consistent. I wrote a piece on it earlier this summer, and I think that's been written by plenty of other people before. I've read it in a piece in The Athletic with Chris Woff and others, is that Newcastle United's budget is fluid to an extent, that if they see somebody who they can bring in, who they think's worth it, will add value, not only value to the team, but is young enough to add value, potentially turn from a 20 million to a 40 million pound player in 2 years, which Joe Willock could easily do. If he continues if he signs for Newcastle for 20 million in the summer and continues his trajectory he had on the end of last season, he'll be a 100 million pound player in a year's time, never mind 40. So I can see the mentality and why you would do that. And that's kind of the club policy, that I think they would spend the money on Willock where they probably wouldn't spend it on others. And that's where we're at. But I don't think Newcastle are in a great place. I think it was described by Mark Douglas in the Chronicle as a tinderbox, and I think that's exactly what I feel like Newcastle United is this summer. It just feels like it'll take one spark, whether that spark is another takeover another takeover dent, whether that spark is no signings, whether that spark is a home battering on the first day of the season, but it doesn't feel a million miles away from being an atom bomb and blowing up at Newcastle United. I think it could happen quite quickly. I think we've seen flashes of that in pre-season with the criticism towards Steve Bruce. The criticism towards Mike Ashley is always there. That's a constant. But yeah, there isn't a real enjoyable feel around Newcastle United at the moment, and I can see a lot of people out there thinking, are we really ready for this season? Do they even want the season to start? Because there isn't a great feel about it. Look, my opinion, and this is my professional opinion as well as my personal opinion, is that I still think even if Newcastle United start this season with the current crop of players, I still think they've got enough to stay up in this division. Does it need freshening up? Absolutely. The midfield needs freshening up big style. I think we've seen that from the starting 11 today, and the players who came off the bench as well. There isn't really a great selection there. Does the back three need freshening up with some pace and athleticism? Absolutely. Could we really do with an upgrade on Dwight Gale as a backup to Callum Wilson? Absolutely. And I did ask that question on Tuesday on everybody out there's behalf, because I know it was a big question coming in on the Monday when we did our pre-record, was, do you believe we've got enough strikers? We've got enough options? So I asked that question. So anybody, if you come up with any questions that are absolute in this, I will ask questions effectively on your behalf. They might not contain the expletives, but I will ask them on your behalf if I feel like I can in press conferences. And the answer to the striker question was quite straight. And actually, it's something that I've said on here, and I do agree with part of it, but not.
Well, it's how other people pulling their hair out, including Gibbo and Supermac.
Yes, because there's two parts to this. The numbers is fine. They've got enough numbers in those areas. Although I would argue in this system, Almiron probably isn't a forward. He can play 10. He can play midfield. 10's his best position. He actually played as a forward in the final game of the season, if everyone remembers back to Fulham. and did quite well. But I wouldn't necessarily class him as a forward. He's as much a forward as Ryan Fraser, who he didn't include in that little sort of forward question. But he did talk about Alan St-Maximin, and Alan St-Maximin in this system, he isn't a striker. He'll go somewhere else and play as a wider forward, or it's not a winger. He's not a winger, but he will play wider, or he'll play 10. But in this system, he works quite well as a striker, so he works in that system. Joe Linton is not a striker, but plays okay in a 2. So he's a forward and plays well in a 2. Then you've got Callum Wilson. The problem for me is not the numbers. So Andy Carroll never needed replaced. He was barely used last season. They needed to upgrade the backup. Dwight Gale proved last season he isn't good enough to step in when Newcastle United need him. I think in pre-season I've seen him so far twice, and I would again argue he's really underlining the fact that he is not good enough as a backup. Rotherham on Tuesday, a week gone, he was absolutely dreadful. I mean, it's only a friendly, but you're looking for somebody with a point to prove. You're looking for somebody. He's playing a front 2 this season. I want to be one of those 2. I didn't see that from Dwight Gale, and that quite frustrated me, to be honest. He's not over the hill. He's not finished. He's 30, 31. The guy can score goals. We know that. He gets in the right positions and takes chances. So why the lack of effort? Why the lack of running? Why the lack of desire? Frustrated me, that. And that's the problem. So that's the thing why I'm pulling my hair out, is that one of the major positions wasn't just to bring more strikers in, because they don't need more strikers, more forwards. They needed a much better version of Dwight Gale to step in if Callum Wilson's not there, because arguably, even if you sign a striker, in my opinion, your front 2 will consistently be Alan St-Maximin and Callum Wilson, unless you go out and spend 50 million on a striker, because you've got 2 good Premier League forwards there, absolutely no doubt. It's a backup. Joe Linton could come in and do a good job. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how Joe Linton develops this season. I thought he's been really good in pre-season. I thought he ended from March onwards at the back end of last season. I thought he really brought value to the team. I went from being maybe in January somebody who said he has to leave this summer to by the end of the season, April, May, saying, no, actually, I think he should stay. The other problem is Dwight Gale. I think Dwight Gale adds absolutely nothing. I'd love him to prove me wrong, but unfortunately, I doubt I will be proved wrong, because he just looks like he's lost that little bit of hunger. He had it the back end of the season previous, scored a lot of goals in that lockdown period, looked really sharp, looked really good. But then last season picked up that injury in pre-season, got a little chance, scored a cracking header against West Brom in about December time, November, December. Never got a kick. And then when he did get a kick later in the season, just looked totally devoid of confidence, just didn't really have that stride about him. And I've got big doubts that he will this season. I want to be proved wrong, but I doubt I will be.
Okay, that's the longest answer to a question recorded by Steve Wraith on the Liam Kennedy Show. 17 minutes for that answer, Liam. I only asked you if you had a good week and if you enjoyed going to friendlies. I love friendlies. That's obviously the answer, isn't it?
That's the answer. You took everyone's questions out of, but no, there's still some good questions coming in. Okay, Darren Cowan says, do you think we'll actually have any new players through the door in time for West Ham, Liam?
Good question, Darren. I've got grave doubts, simply because of the timing. So what we're recording now on Tuesday, you're talking about 10 days probably to be registered. Look, they're trying, but I've got grave doubts. And what I would say, we're kind of getting to the point whereby if they do sign somebody within that 10-day period, they're probably not going to be part of the first team. They're more likely to be on the bench, unless, well, even you sign a Joe Willock, he has not played a lot of football this summer. I'm saying somebody like John Joe Shelby hasn't played a lot of football, of course, but I think he fits into the team. I think that it's less likely that a new signing will be thrown straight in for West Ham. So it's increasingly, I can't say of anything definite, because things do change very quickly in this market. Newcastle United, Steve Bruce said, irons in the fire. They have got a lot of plates spinning at the moment. They've got a lot balanced on whether Joe Willock's coming or not. And if he is, then a lot of those plates will fall quite quickly. But if he isn't, they're going to need to work really hard to change that around. They've got other targets lined up. Ross Barkley ranks quite highly on that list. Conor Gallagher did rank highly on that list, but I never really felt they were ever going to win that battle. It always felt like they were third in the 3-horse race with Crystal Palace and Leeds. But Ross Barkley, they've got a chance. Some would say damaged goods. You can look at it one way or the other way. Some would say damaged goods. Others might say he was in England, full England international, the regular in the first team, not sort of 15, 16 months ago. So look, I think he's a decent player, but I think Joe Willock's the one that would add proper legs to this team. I think he fits in perfectly as well.
I'm just laughing at Keith Rowe's question. He says, "Can you repeat the answer to the first question, please, Liam?"
I'll try if you want. I'll try if you want a boring show.
Stu Taylor says, have the last year's accounts for Newcastle been published yet?
No. No, they haven't.
No answer. Mr. Anderson says, question for you both. If we sign Tuanzebe, who would you take out of the team? Of course, linked with this potential signing from Man United. Somebody who Pete Davey on the show back end of last season, said we should maybe look at. Is any closer with that, do you think? And who would you take out the team, Liam?
It sounds like it's an exorbitant loan fee, and I think it's something that would massively eat into Newcastle United's budget, and I don't think it's something they're willing to do now. The big issue with the Tuanzebe thing is, and I've said this on this show since the start of the summer, that if you're fighting with teams who've got a bit more money and a bit more desire to sign players, and Aston Villa definitely fit into that category and would fit into that category even more, should Jack Grealish get his wish, well, potential wish, and go to Manchester City this summer. Then they'll come in with a cash bid, and I could see them sign Tuanzebe for, I don't know what his fee may be, but it'll be a lot more than the loan fee. It'll be a decent permanent fee. And Newcastle United just won't do that. They're not in the market for doing that at the moment. So, like I say, it's somebody put it quite eloquently, actually. They sent me a tweet saying, if you're waiting for scraps off the table, sometimes you'll end up with none. And it kind of feels like that a little bit this summer with Newcastle United, that the scraps are falling and they just seem to be missing out on the bits and bobs that they need to keep themselves from starving. And I suppose we'll find out. I think when we do the show next week, we'll have a much better idea of where things stand. I can't sit here and say I'm confident they'll sign anybody. What I will say is I'm confident they will sign players by the end of the window. Is that going to be too late for the first couple of games? It certainly feels that way. It's getting tight now.
John Askew says, does a lack of funding for transfers show that Mike is still counting on a sale of the club, Liam? I mean, takeover talk quashed it all last week, to be fair, on the way down to Rotherham. I'm not even contemplating anything happening now until the end of September. And even then, I'll be ecstatic if something does. But for me, it's dead and buried, I think, with this particular one anyway. But does that lack of funding for transfers show he's still counting on the sale?
Look, probably people with better contacts with me are linking the two together, but I kind of just see this as Newcastle United rolling along as it always has. If the money is there, it gets spent. If the money isn't there, it doesn't get spent. And that's kind of the way they operate. I don't think there's a lot of money there. I think if they do sign Joe Willock on a permanent, which has been suggested, I would be very surprised if they spent any more money this window. I think they could possibly push to that. But look, I don't really connect the two. I think this is just Mike Ashley running Newcastle United the way Newcastle United runs. I say Mike Ashley, I don't really think he's that hands-on in terms of the football club. I don't think he ever really has been. Obviously, he gets say-so on big deals, etc. But it's Justin Barnes who's got the purse strings, Lee Charnley, who largely does a lot of the transfer talking. So it's Newcastle being Newcastle. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm not really saying... I think the takeover's helped? No. I think the uncertainty has really rocked the boat and made everybody feel a bit unsure of themselves in whatever way that may be, whether that's players, fans, the manager, potential new signings, people looking to come to Newcastle United. That uncertainty isn't really a good thing. We need like a degree of certainty. And Newcastle United looks like it's not a great prospect for anybody coming in now. But look, you've just got to hope that they can sort of turn that around. And with the takeover, I'll make a comment on that now. Look, it doesn't sound like it's... Look, if you were to say, does it sound like it's going in the right direction? Probably not. But I think everybody knows that. The delays are really causing issues. For the consortium, the buyers, the seller. You really just want these delays. Any talk that it was some kind of master stroke and move that the club have done this deliberately for cat case, etc., to run and look, that's just a byproduct of a decision that they weren't very happy about
or their briefing that they weren't happy about the delays for the arbitration. So, yeah, I think it's just going to be a watch this space one. We'll have to wait and see how things develop over the next few weeks. It sounds like, you're always hearing bits and bobs, about what's happening behind the scenes, what isn't happening behind the scenes. But at the moment, there's not a lot to report. And I would say that isn't when previously I've been able to come on here and say it sounds like really confident. There's a lot of people briefing confidence and positivity. I would say there hasn't been for a few weeks now. Read into that what you will. Is that a negative turn? I think it probably is. Or is it just quiet? Who knows? I think, like I say, it's with the takeover, and I think Steve will probably concur, it's just going to be a watch this space one for a few weeks, at least.
Yeah, definitely will be. But rest assured, if we do hear anything and it's positive or negative, you'll hear it here first. Not on other podcasts who just like to ridicule people doing takeover talk. Andy Forsyth says, "Evening all, Liam. Steve, is there any truth in the rumours that Arsenal want to keep Willock and loan us Alexandre Lacazette and the possible signing of Mackenzie Lacroix from Wolfsburg?" Again, the papers have been full of rumours, and that's not something which is unusual in the summer. But any truth in any of those?
Well, I would probably rule out Lacazette at this stage. I don't know where that's come from. I know nothing of the guy from Wolfsburg. It's not a name that I've heard. And I'll always be honest with you guys on here. And I don't think Jason Wilcox is coming out of retirement to sign for Newcastle United to provide any bullets for Callum Wilson. But no, Willock, look, I think I would be guessing if I know exactly what the thinking is at Arsenal. But my take on it has always been that they would sell him if they could get decent money. I don't really think he's a part of their plans. He doesn't fit in the team. He doesn't fit the way they play. His lack of time in pre-season reflects that. And I think he's a player that they've been keeping ticking over to potentially get out the door. I just think it's a funny one with Willock. It could be one that goes right till the end of the window, but on Newcastle United in a position where they've literally got all their eggs in one basket until the last few days of the window. I would suggest they're probably not. And I would say that by the sort of tone, the changes in tone and the type of things that Steve Bruce is saying, having spoken to him twice in the last week, I kind of get the feeling he's desperate for Willock. But there's almost an acceptance there that we're coming to the point where Newcastle United are going to have to probably move on, even though it would make him absolutely devastated if Willock was sort of sanctioned to leave and turned up at an Everton or a Leicester. People are suggesting he was offered to Leicester. He might have been, but I just don't see where he fits in that Leicester team, to be honest. I don't think he would get a game, and I don't think it would be progressive for him to make that kind of move, and if he wants to get football matches. But yeah, there's talk of other clubs being interested. It wouldn't surprise me if West Ham's having a look, or somebody like that, or an Aston Villa, or there'd be a wash with money potentially within a few weeks' time. But Willock is top of the list. But how long Newcastle United wait? I think patience, in my opinion, is starting to wear thin.
Stephen Locke's asking, I've saw Luke Edwards' report, he says that he thinks we'll pay 22 million for Willock, which essentially would spend our entire budget. I mean, could you see that happening if season ticket sales are low, Liam? Willock had such a great end of the season for us. If Willock was receptive to coming, do you think that would happen?
I've always said that throughout the summer. I don't rule it out. You can't rule out a cash buy on Willock. It still probably seems the most unlikely of the options. I would still probably suggest, if you were to rank them, that a loan deal would probably favour. Doesn't favour Arsenal, of course, who are the selling club. That's the one thing, but that could be one that could be worked out, or him potentially turning up elsewhere. Although the queue isn't massive for clubs who are interested, I think a lot of people will have been convinced by his scintillating form at the back end of last season. I think there would be other takers. Newcastle United do head up that queue, and it's just whether they can convince the player to come for another year, or particular sign permanent, because it's a big move. It is let's not beat around the bush here, but you're talking about a 21-year-old lad who might not be damaged by another year on the fringes at Arsenal. Could easily get another loan move later in the year if he sort of agrees to a longer-term deal, as they protect the asset. And really, it's a big move. It's a big move for a young lad, making that permanent switch.
because, again, not beating around the bush, but Newcastle United is a big step down from Arsenal. It's a huge step down in terms of the way the club's ran, the infrastructure, everything about it. It's a massive step down. And it's a big decision for a lad at 21. So I don't envy it. I certainly won't hold it to him if he's having second thoughts, because I think it's hard not to have second thoughts the way the situation is. Plus, he's been there since he's a kid. He's an Arsenal fan. He's Arsenal through and through. He's developed all the way through there. He's been part of the Arsenal family since he was in single digits. And look, it's not going to be an easy decision.
No.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Jacob, we did touch on ASM earlier on. He's ill at the moment. The club aren't, able to say what he's got. It's up to him to announce, what he has. But I think, minds cast to what's been going on recently, it wouldn't take a genius to work out what possibly is affecting him. He's not packing these bags, is he? I doubt it. Very much. Let's hope not. But
well, he does like a little trip to France every so often. He
does like that. Can't stably buy the club herself, and then the Saudis buy in. That isn't something that they're looking at. No. Can you tell me how much we paid Muto to leave? He's on a hefty wage and had a year left, Liam, says Jordan.
I don't know. I think it was one of those that suited all parties, to be honest. Newcastle just cut their losses. It's not something they often do with players, but it's basically freed Muto up to return to Japan by the looks of it. I don't know the exact fees, but I can imagine he's probably been virtually paid up for the last year of his contract. That tends to be the way things work. And Newcastle United have sort of freed up a space in their squad that otherwise would have to have been taken by somebody like Muto.
Big shout out to our sponsors, as always, Spider VPN. They're with us for another month. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the Google search list. If you want to protect your computer, protect your passwords, protect your photographs, these are the boys to trust. Give them a shout. Skipsandbins.com as well. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Also qtechshop.co.uk. John is out of hospital and he's in the chat room tonight, so welcome back, John. Rest up, mate. It's been a tough ride with the COVID, mate, but sounds as if you're on the mend, which is good news. Makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle, and also the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to buy a t-shirt, get yourself over to there. Also a big shout out to Jab Signature, who make our flyers. Good evening, John. I hope you're well. And two new sponsors. Must be because of the start of the season. Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. Local direct cremations available from £1,495. You can find them on 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead, NE8 4BQ. Telephone 0191 478 2730 or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk is their website. Darren was one of our very first sponsors. Likes to put a sponsorship in once each year. So big welcome to him. And as I said, the start of the season's got everyone feeling like a funeral. Unfortunately, Family Funeral Directors L&G 0191 389 7245. It was since that takeover news broke, I think, that the fact that everything was getting pushed back. I think that's why we've been inundated.
You've got a fancy dress for it anyway, Steve, haven't you?
I have, made the Vickers costume. Yes, I'll dig it out. Some interesting ones. I know not everyone likes the true crime or the other interviews we did. We did Kelly Maloney last week. Got some cracking ones lined up over the next couple of weeks. I'm definitely going to share them with you. Jamie Hull wrote a fantastic book called Life on the Thread. I'm pre-recording one with him on Thursday. Just Google him. Fascinating story, that one. I'm also interviewing Peter McAleese, the man who was tasked with the job of killing Pablo Escobar. He's an SAS man. Again, another great book. Going to interview Peter and talk about his life and time. So a couple of military ones there, but well worth looking at their books on Amazon. And those interviews are to come in due course. And as you know, we constantly do shows every night of the week. Tomorrow night is the retro night. We're looking at joint. We've never done a joint one before. We're doing Cardiff and Swansea, so that is Wednesday night. That'll be a pre-record as I am in London on Wednesday. Thursday night, of course, back with Super Mac and Gibbo, And Friday night we'll be back with the Fab Four, and it'll be a live show on Friday night. So let everybody know that. And Steve will, or we will be finding out the new date, of course, for the pool night as well, which we will have to rearrange. And the Christmas night will be also announced as well. If you haven't got your tickets, move quickly. A couple of nights' time, we will be at Bobix, me and Liam, to do a little show for the food bank. All proceeds going to the food bank at the Punch Bowl in Jesmond. It's now called Bobix. So get yourself along and give us some support. £10 a ticket, and as I say, all proceeds to the food bank. And still time to get tickets for me and Supermac, although these are selling very quickly. And they are August the 19th at the Farmhouse Kitchen, £10 a ticket. For that one as well. And if you're going to the Norwich game at the weekend, we will be back doing our pre-match. Me and Supermac will be at the Dog and Parrot, and we will be there 12 until 1:30. 12 till 1:30. Malcolm will be arriving round about 1:45. But we are doing our pre-matches at the Dog and Parrot again. So get yourself upstairs at the Dog and Parrot on Saturday if you want to come along and meet some of the crowd. Look forward to that. Okay, back to the questions. Questions coming in by Bruce already. Liam, can you please ask Steve Bruce, why does he always say that he is delighted even though we are rubbish?
I probably won't ask him that, no. I'm sorry, but no, I know it's something that does annoy people, doesn't it? When things are going well and when you don't particularly like a person, there are certain mannerisms that he has. I know some people pick up on it. The laugh, the smile, even when things aren't great. And it's just, we had the one last year. Was it with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United, where it was the arm around the shoulder or the sort of laughing and carrying on type thing? And yeah, there are little things like that. Look, if Newcastle are winning games and doing well, you wouldn't focus on it, but they're really not. And I think it is an annoyance, and I get why people find it annoying.
Yeah, Paul Wandless, Bobby Clark has gone to Liverpool. Yes, we'll be getting Lee Clark on. He's busy sorting himself a new job out at the moment. So Lee will be back on the show in the next couple of weeks. Obviously got a bit to say about Bobby as well, I think. So I'm looking forward to getting him on. Dan Bruce on Twitter says, what's the info on Bruce's contract situation? Is it a rolling yearly extension, or is there a 3-year sentence in the offing, he says?
It doesn't sound like it's a new 3-year deal, but there definitely has been an extension, and it would suggest that there's a roll-on, but we haven't had any official confirmation. Spoke to Steve Bruce. It was questions from Miles Starfath, who works for the Shields Gazette, and Lee Ryder as well, that pushed him on his contract the other day, and he confirmed that it doesn't end at the end of this season. I had some people misquoting that and suggesting it was, well, if it doesn't end in May, it ends in June. The question itself, I can absolutely confirm I was there. I was speaking with him at the same time. The question was, does your contract end at the end of this season? And he said no. So that would suggest he's got at least another year and does point towards some kind of rolling deal. It's not uncommon in the managerial world, and it doesn't surprise us. I remember picking it out at the time, but the deal was signed as an initial 3-year deal. Initial being the key word. And that's quite unusual in a contract to announce that. Newcastle United don't tend to announce that kind of thing. And an initial was always the key word. So, yeah, I don't know if I don't think it's a new deal that he signed. I think it's just it's something that runs along as the current one. And that would suggest it's probably, look, I'm guessing here, but keep Newcastle United up and it rolls on to the next season or hits certain targets and rolls on to the next season. And that's where we currently are, that Steve Bruce is contracted for this season and beyond.
Yeah, okay. Plenty of questions coming in on Twitter as well. J2 Army says, do you both feel more or less confident than this time last year? Personally, less confident and far too reliant on Wilson. I feel, after the Willock situation, I feel less confident going into this season as we are at the moment. What about you?
Less confident because last summer had the boost of the likes of, I think Wilson was a really big signing. I thought Ryan Fraser was a really solid signing, and Jamal Lewis was quite an exciting signing. Things didn't quite work out the way everyone expected with two of those, although again, it's something that I've preached constantly on here. I think Jamal Lewis is a good player. He's just a young lad, and he is still learning his trade, to be honest. Hasn't really played a load of professional games. Ryan Fraser, massive disappointment. Ryan Fraser, if Newcastle United want to play the way they do, does not fit in this team at all. It seems like there's a lot of sort of square pegs and round holes, Almiron being the biggest one, but Ryan Fraser is a winger. He's a proper winger, but Newcastle United don't play with wingers at all.
It just doesn't fit anywhere in this team. And I don't see how the season's going to be any better for somebody like Ryan Fraser, unless Graham Jones was back on Friday. He was in this. He was sort of taking a watching brief almost from sort of in the middle of the two dugouts. Wasn't really coming out, getting involved, but he's got a lot of work to do. And fingers crossed, he can have a couple of systems up his sleeve that maybe at least one of them incorporates these wide forwards, because Newcastle United have got Joe Linton, who plays that position, Ryan Fraser, who plays that position, and Alan St-Maximin, who also plays that position as natural positions.
Over 500 watching tonight. We'll never take your support for granted. Thanks very much. If you're a first-time visitor, please subscribe. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo just down in the bottom right-hand corner. You can subscribe to the channel for free. You'll get notifications when we go live. We do 7 shows a week, so please subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumb up underneath. It's free again. Just like the video. It does us a big favour. And with over 500 watching, it'd be nice to get over 100 at least thumbs up and liking the video. And click share the video to your social media, and drop into the comments box to talk to like-minded Newcastle fans. Okay, so another question here from Colin Wilson. This is a good one. He says, Liam, do you think because of the state of our club at the moment, it's having an effect on bringing decent players in?
Yeah, I do. I think Newcastle United isn't a great prospect to anybody, particularly young players. Like you look, for example, Joe Willock, who enjoyed his time here, like living up here, will be positive about the idea of a crowd coming back. Maybe not a toxic one, but will be quite happy to come back to Newcastle United if things are on an even keel. But it isn't great. There's so much uncertainty at the moment. So little positivity because there's been no progress in the transfer market. If Newcastle United had gone out and signed a couple of players, I think Joe Willock probably is an easier signing, but the money isn't there. They're not really spending it. So yeah, I think it is. I would throw that out there. Anybody go in the comments and say, do you think Newcastle United is an exciting prospect for anybody? Say, for example, if it was your son or your daughter who was a footballer and wanted to sign for a club like that, then really would that be something that you wanted? You mentioned the Lee Clark situation with Bobby Clark. I would argue that his and we talked about this last week, I think, or maybe in the week before, that the players like that their development is probably better served elsewhere. That's just the way Newcastle United is at the moment. And I would say that on a first team level, if Joe Willock's going to come here and say, right, this is my big move, I'm leaving Arsenal for a reason, and I'm going to go there, and my target is, I'm 21, by the time I'm 23, I want to be in the England squads regular. Is Newcastle United the right place to come? If that's really what you probably want to do? Again, there's plenty of people who would argue it isn't.
Yep, it's going to be a long, hard season, I think. Brian Helens asks on Twitter, can you ask Liam why the EPL haven't suspended Hoffman, with reports linking him to money laundering? Obviously, we saw the Monzo news break earlier this week. And he also says, do you think this could have an effect regarding the CAC case, with corruption being one of the issues? I mean, my understanding is it's probably come a little bit too late to be involved in anything to do with the CAC case. I might be wrong.
Well, it sounds that way, doesn't it? That it's probably too late. But what it does shine a light on is it's innocent until proven guilty, is what I would say before I go down any avenues here. Is that obviously that we're talking about allegations here and potential involvement. So I'm not really at liberty to comment on, say, should he be suspended, should he not be suspended. I suppose that's genuinely down to the Premier League.
Yeah, I would say the same. Sorry to disappoint anybody, but that's just the way it is. Alan Thompson says, I predict a crowd of 38,000 against West Ham. Been a big talking point, this Kevin Phillips saying that, of course, Kevin Phillips, SMB, but from our perspective, he's still saying he doesn't think St James's Park will be a cauldron of hate anymore. It'll be easy to play there. Against West Ham, he reckons that'll be the lowest crowd in the Premier League for 20 years since the ground was increased. The tinder box is already starting. I mean, what do you expect crowd-wise for that first game? I'm a little bit more optimistic. I don't think it'll be a full house, but I think we'll be edging towards, I don't know, I've just got a feeling because people will want to go back for that experience. I think we'll be certainly hedging towards 46, 47. But I can understand people saying that it's not going to be as busy. People can pay as they want through the season if they're not getting season tickets. It doesn't mean the ground is going to be empty, but I still think there'll be a lot to stay away. But I think 46, 47 me for West Ham.
But I think it'll be a full away end, which will make a big difference at the crowd. And like I say, I think there will be walk-ups. Newcastle consistently surprise when it comes to things like this. And even though I think season ticket sales will be down, walk-ups would also be down. I still think you're probably looking at something like a 44, 45 crowd would be my prediction.
Okay, it'll be interesting. I think for the games, the lesser games, Brighton, Burnley, those type of games, Watford.
Yeah.
I think we could be down to the low 40s and maybe just under 40 for those. I still think we'll have a good average for for the Premier League and for this area. Do you know what I mean? Paul Oxley says 38,000 fans doesn't affect Ashley. TV money is key. As long as that keeps coming in, Mike Ashley's making money. Fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is fair enough. It's a huge chunk, but I wouldn't underestimate the impact, financial impact that a lack of fans, a lack of because it's not just been commercial revenues that are reduced in terms of broadcast rebates or lack of sponsorship of certain things. The boxes are coming to games. The ticket sales does matter as well. People not buying the merchandise, people not turning up on match day has made a difference. And I think the real life reflection of that is the budget that Newcastle United are operating in this summer. So to say it has no impact isn't right. Does it have as big an impact as what it did 20 years ago? It's nowhere near, because TV is king. But there is, look, like I say, we're seeing the real life impact of fans not being in football grounds now. We're seeing that. So if Newcastle United's fans consistently stopped putting money into the football club, it would be damaging to the finances of the football club, which ultimately means they're more likely to get relegated, and ultimately means Mike Ashley is going to be less happy with his investment and probably have to put his hand in his pocket to keep the thing afloat in a lower division, like he has on two previous occasions.
Yeah, BBC reporting that all 20 Premier League clubs have agreed to continue taking the knee in the fight against racism. That's no great surprise. We've seen it continue, and I'm not against it. I really don't understand people booing. Really, it's something they've decided to do, and fair play. If they think it's going to make a difference, let's continue to do it.
But the fact is, it probably isn't making a difference, but at least it's bringing the conversation to the fore. And I don't really want to...
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I don't really want to get too deep into this, because I know there's it polarizes views out there. Some people have very strong views on it. I have my own views, but I'll just keep them to myself.
Yeah, I agree. John Ditchy says, I'm expecting to see a football team boom like the country saw after World War II, but whether people return back to St James's Park to watch Brucey Ball is another question, which is another good point. Kenny reckons, do you think putting the cat case back might have put Willock off? I mean, it's going to have an effect. These players, for all the... don't sit in the house watching exactly what's going on. It's, the thought of a Saudi takeover at Newcastle and millions of pounds being ploughed in and playing alongside, players that you can learn off is appealing. Willock now looking at St James's Park saying the takeover might be off and I might have to be playing alongside, Hendrick and Joe Linton. I mean, it's a big difference.
Look, at the end of the day, I don't think Joe Willock's got a clue about the cat case. He's probably not sitting there on Arsenal's bench the other day worrying whether Newcastle United's cat case is going to run on the 27th or the 29th of September. But as you make the important point, Steve, the idea that there was a takeover, if that dies, then Newcastle becomes an even less attractive prospect for anybody walking through the door.
100% Mark says he's heard a rumour that Ashley could go on a spending spree to protect his investment in the takeover. Any thoughts on that, Liam?
Probably just a rumour. It's not something I've heard. It's not something I expect. I think things are probably just going to roll on in a similar fashion to what they have for the rest of the summer, but with a couple of loan signings. And I do see, I've said that all along, I think they will spend some money, but it's not going to be life-changing stuff.
Mitch Hunter says, difficult to take this. Keep hearing Steve dismiss the takeover, but he's just doing what he's always done, and that's give his honest opinion. Difficult to see anything positive for Newcastle's future at this very moment. Yeah, it's all you can do. Give your honest opinion, and my gut instinct tells me this is over. Alan White, how come the young Paraguay kid Vilca is not getting any time with the first team? I mean, a bit like Elliot Anderson, I saw somebody commenting about him earlier on. I mean, these players clearly aren't good enough.
Peru he's from. Yes, I think that could be one who does leave on loan. I think there's a lot of players who probably will depart on loan this summer, Vilca being one of them. Look, Elliot Anderson's injuries caused problems with a loan. I think Matty Longstaff will probably leave on loan. I think they're probably going to see, between now and the end of the window, probably see 5 or 6 Newcastle players leave on loan, but mostly young kids.
I love this question from Alan Thompson. He says, Liam, if Mike Ashley came on the show, what would be your first question that you would ask him? And mine would be, why the hell did you buy the club?
Well, mine probably wouldn't be that. Knowing the reasons he bought the football club was to use it as a boost to Sports Direct. You know, he came in and used it to push his sports brand. We all know that. It's something I think that John Hall, who sold him the shares in the first place, has gone on record and said that was the main reason as to why Mike Ashley bought the football club. I would be keen to know, and this is just off the top of my head, thinking back through the process. I'll be keen to know more about what was it that made you turn off? Because he was a very willing participant in the football club. He looked to be enjoying owning a Premier League football club, and then the fun stopped, around the Keegan departure. I'd be interested to know what his thoughts were, his emotions, his feelings around that time, and was that the reason why he turned off? Because of this, it was such a negative reaction to the decision that was taken at the time, with the transfers, etc., and things like that. Look, there'd be 1,000,001 questions, absolute 1,000,001 questions. There'd probably be some really current, relevant questions that you'd want to ask Mike Ashley. But look, at the end of the day, I think he's a man who does want to sell the football club. I don't think he wants to be owner of Newcastle United anymore. Finding buyers hasn't been easy because he does set the bar reasonably high. He wants to make money off his asset. And to be honest, it's a minor annoyance. Becomes a little bit more of an itch he needs to scratch when they get relegated. But realistically, in monetary terms, it still isn't a big problem for him. If Newcastle United get relegated, it probably just means it becomes less saleable in the short term. Quick injection of funds taken back within 2 years upon promotion. It's a minor annoyance. And as much as that hurts to say that, because we're also emotionally invested in it, that's just life, and that's the way it is, and that's the way he runs this business. We could have had worse owners. It's hard to believe that at times. We could have had worse owners, but I am absolutely no Ashley apologist. You'll never get me apologising for the kind of actions, the utter disdain that he's treated Newcastle United fans with over the 14 years, some of the incredible, shocking decisions, the way club legends have been tossed in the gutter, the 2 relegations. I grew up with Newcastle United that strive for more and strive to be better, not one that just exists and is now actually ceasing to exist almost as a Premier League football club, being the only one that hasn't even signed a player. We haven't even brought anybody in on a free transfer this summer. But we wait, we hope, we pray that could come to an end soon. People often ask me in my confidence about will this happen, will that happen? The one thing that I've got absolute confidence about is that this will end. There's nothing surer than Mike Ashley's time at Newcastle United will end. And whatever comes after that, I'm not sure really. But there'll definitely be a party in this household when that man leaves. No doubt about it.
Definitely will be a party across Tyneside as well. Okay, Dean asks a $1 million question here. He says, how do you think we can bring fans together and get those who want to chant Ashley out to put that aside for now and unite behind one voice against the Premier League corruption? I mean, I've seen talk, Holly discussed it last night on the show about protests for the West Ham game and potentially continuing protests. I don't know too much about it. I haven't spoken to anybody involved. But, how can that happen? I mean, you've been to one of the friendlies, a couple of the friendlies. You've seen the fans, you've heard the fans, and for me, it was very split. Some people singing against Bruce, some people praising Bruce, to a degree, having a laugh with them. Some people, singing against Ashley. The fans weren't in unison with all of those songs. I've got to be honest.
I joked with Steve Bruce on Friday actually when I got to chat to him a little bit about that, and I said, you're turning the fans round. I said, they even asked you to wave at one point. And then that was closely followed by the little chant after that I'll not repeat because I know this is a family show. But no, it's divided. A fan base as a whole. Look, everybody's got their own opinion. You never, there's all this talk of oh, it's such a divided fan base, this, that, and the other. It's all fighting against each other. Yes, it is toxic in the moment, but ultimately, it's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and we don't all have the same opinions. Never all going to agree, and ultimately, I respect anybody's opinion. Do you want this takeover? Do you not? I respect it if you don't. I respect it if you do. Do you want Steve Bruce out? I respect you if you do. I respect you if you don't. Your opinions on Mike Ashley. You should we protest? Should we not? You're never going to get a united movement. Newcastle United's last 15 years has proven that. Maybe we weren't quite as, or maybe in the modern times, we're not quite as militant as a lot of people would have themselves believe. Maybe it doesn't happen. I don't believe the same would happen at Glasgow Rangers or Celtic. I don't believe the same would happen at Manchester United, Manchester City. I don't believe the same would happen at Liverpool. I think there are. I just don't know if, and I don't know the answer to this. On Newcastle United or Geordies, are we wired different? Are we not quite as angry about this sort of thing, even though we are? Are we militant? Because I don't think the things that have happened at this football club over the last 15 years, and there hasn't really been a major kickback reaction. You've been involved in a lot of that, Steve, and I know it's something that we've spoken about. You've spoken about with other people, and it is almost impossible to unite a fan base. It really is.
Yeah, it is. Herding cats is Neil Mitchell's favourite saying, and never a truer word spoken. Tim Cairns and Tom Dixon both ask the same question. Make a prediction of our position in the league. I'm going for 17th again, I think.
15.
15, okay. Lots of people saying great show. Ryan Sweeney says he can't for the life of me understand fans singing for Bruce. It's mental. Look at everyone crying last season. Now they're singing his name. It wasn't really a singing his name. It's having a bit of banter with him, a bit of a laugh with him. But what I'm trying to say is people weren't in unison singing against Steve Bruce. To be honest, if you start singing against Bruce this early on when we haven't even kicked a ball, it's not going to serve any purpose. It's the Premier League that's prevented the takeover. Mike Ashley, we have to believe that he still wants to sell the football club, but the Premier League have prevented it for whatever reason. And we're in this position where we're very angry, and we're going into a new season once again with very little investment, I would imagine, and pretty much the same players that kept us up last season, bar Willock. I think a lot of people will vote with their feet. And I think that's the biggest protest you can do as a football fan, because it means you're walking away from the club you love. You're walking away from going to the match on a day-to-day basis. And it's a desperate time. There are clubs worse off. We just need to look 10 miles down the road, of course. But I think it's a bit like the Christmas Carol. We're looking down the road thinking that could be us in the Christmas future. We could be like Sunderland. We could have a huge stadium, and we could be in the third tier of English football. And that's the big concern for Newcastle fans. And, that we do go down, but this time we don't come back up. And that what do you do? Even if all the fans were united, would it make a difference? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. The chances of all the fans being united is zero, I'm afraid, because there's too many divides. And not all caused by Mike Ashley. Some caused by individuals, some caused by groups. But what can you do? I've tried. I've given up on that particular thing now. I've got no intention on getting involved in trying to work to heal that. Let's leave it to other people. Tom Lynch says, depends who comes in as our owners. If it's not the takeover, then who? As you said, Liam, there's owners even worse than Ashley, which is a good point, Tom.
There is, Tom. Look. Yeah. Well, I want to quickly come in on that, Tom, is that if you hadn't had the carrot of PIF dangled, then I think most people would rather have rolled the dice and had anybody but Ashley. I do think there was a lot of people thinking in that mindset. I think with a carrot of PIF and a potential big spend in Newcastle United, run really professionally, is maybe making people become a bit picky. I don't know what the situation is, but I'm still kind of in the mindset. Look, I think supporting Newcastle United for large sections of this 14 to 15 years has been utterly grim. It has been horrible. Really has. It's easy to forget how horrible it's been because we're on the eve of a new season. I'm going to buy this shirt. It's been horrible supporting Newcastle United. It has been like sucking the life out of me. And I can say it's probably been sucking the life out of 99% of people watching this show now. And if you gave me the option now and said it's Ashley or anybody, I'd roll the dice. I really would. And I think there's probably a lot of people that agree with that. Of course, your financial minds, all that kind of thing, will come into the conversation and say, look, what could have happened? You could be Sunderland. You could be this. You could be that. You could be Sheffield Wednesday. You could be Derby County. You could be Burnley. You could be whatever. Really, is this good enough? Are we happy just existing? I would roll the dice to say we can be better and let's give it a shot. We might be better because we ain't going to be better under Mike Ashley, full stop.
Yeah, I would agree. Nicholas says, heartbreaking for young'uns. They must look at how upset the grown-ups are and must want now to do with the daft club. Long gone are the days shoveling snow up the pitch to make sure the match is on. Alan says his particular protest is not going. It's simple. Until Ashley and Bruce go. Yet some people I know like Bruce and think Ashley's a great businessman and keeps the club solvent. Yeah, there is always other people, who ultimately feel, like that. And, they're entitled to their opinion. Christopher Duffield, he says, I think you should both be proud for doing this show, guys. It's difficult to be a Newcastle supporter, but I wouldn't change it. If you sold St. Maximum for 50 million, who would you buy with the money? I'd buy Willock if that meant. I'd definitely bring Willock in. I think you'd find it hard to attract players if you were going to sell one of your better players. I really do. But, I still think we need a centre-forward. I know Liam and I, disagree on that, but I still think we need somebody else up front to score goals. You win games by not conceding goals and by scoring goals. I think we've got enough defenders. We haven't got a great midfield, but I would sign Willock and I would sign a centre-forward. If I had to buy two players and if we had 50 million to spend, I'd spend the money on Willock and I'd spend the money on a centre forward or, whatever. But, that's my view anyway. What about you?
I'm only just going to answer this with if you sell Alan St. Maximin for £50 million, then it's a real statement of intent and not in a good way. And I think you're right in the first thing that you said, Steve, that it would be really difficult to attract players. Is Joe Willock really going to sign for Newcastle United if you're letting your best player, or arguably your best player, your most creative player, leave the football club? It would be a sign of a really negative sign if Newcastle United did that. And it's not something, like I said, it's not something they want to do. It's something they're really, really keen to quash. Particularly speaking to people over the last week or so, is that they've seen the club have seen the fan reaction, the fan paranoia about exits and things like that. And they were keen to stress. And again, I can't say that with any degree of certainty, but they were keen to stress that it was nothing to do with an exit. It was purely to do with this illness. Who would I sign? It's a really hard question to answer because, like I say, I'm looking around the Premier League thinking Alan St. Maximin is the star player at Newcastle United. Everybody's talking about Alan St. Maximin when you play Newcastle United. Everyone's aware of him because of his flashy nature, his skill, his goals, his creativity. And I think a lot of players would look at Newcastle United selling Alan St. Maximin towards the end of this window and think sinking ship. That would be my opinion.
Yeah, Paul Kinson said, is there a protest planned? Yeah, apparently there's certainly plans afoot by the sounds of it from what I've heard and seen on social media, and nothing concrete yet, but yes, Paul, apparently there is. I'll not be at the match. I missed the game. I'm booked in for a trip to Abbey Road. A big music fan, me, and it's something I've planned since before COVID, and I'll be walking across the infamous zebra crossing, I'm afraid. So at least I'll see a zebra. I haven't seen one with a takeover, but at least I'll see something zebra-related with black and white stripes when we're playing. But blame the Premier League and Sky that changed the bloody game. I was booked in for the Sunday thinking they'll never pick West Ham for the game. And surely enough, they did. So there we go. So I'm actually missing the first game. Liam, time has beaten us. Give us a quick plug for where people can find you, mate.
So, a bit of a change. You won't find us at the Shields Gazette anymore. So I've kind of kept it under wraps over the last few weeks. You've probably noticed I've been less active on Twitter, writing less stories, involved in less conversations. It's because I've been part of conversations and meetings with regards launching a brand new website that's going to be fully committed to not only Newcastle United Football Club, but fully committed to life in Newcastle. It's called Newcastle World. It's part of a big push as part of our new owners at JPI Media, National World. You may have seen I've published a couple of stories at National World's website in the last week or so. It's just to keep me busy. But yes, I will be part. I've been picked off the Gazette, brought on, cherry picked to head up the new Newcastle World website that was fully launched. The announcement was made at about noon today, so I can fully talk about it without getting me wrist slapped this time, because I know I hinted at it a few weeks ago and got reeled back in. But yeah, I can talk about that now. It's an exciting project, so keep an eye out for it. Fully launched the website on the 12th of August, and that's when you'll probably be hearing and seeing a lot more of me.
Good stuff, mate. As always, thanks for giving us an hour of your time, and look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, Liam. Bye, mate.
Cheers.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna